This was something I heard on, it was by a fellow named James O'Brien. It was just a short that showed up on YouTube from the London Broadcasting Company. I'm sure you've seen them. James O'Brien, he takes phone calls and has these really, I think, these really interesting conversations with people. A lot of people try to argue with him. And after the first couple of shows, I would have just thought that they would stop trying to do that because it seems pointless. But in this one video, it's one short, he's speaking about how the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, was in Europe crying about how England and Europe are losing their freedom of speech. And he pointed to some laws that England and England and Scotland have put in place to keep people so far away from clinics and to keep people from doing this or protesting in certain spaces. And he's saying, you're losing your free speech. We have to protect free speech. And James shares a story from the Columbia University School of Journalism, where they were telling the students to purge their social media of anything that is critical of the current U.S. administration. And they were telling them to refrain from posting on social media or anywhere anything that is critical of the current White House administration. And when one of the students stood up to say, we can't do that, the dean of the journalism school stood up and said, we can't protect you. Nobody can protect you from this administration. These are dangerous times. And then, of course, James O'Brien, Mr. O'Brien, goes on to, scold J.D. Vance for the gall of saying, wait a second, how is it that you're telling us that we don't have freedom of speech, but your journalism schools are terrified for their students, so much so that they're instructing their students not to say anything critical about the current administration because bad things might happen to them. Trump has sued ABC. Trump has sued law firms who have represented people that Trump doesn't like. He has sued law firms that have represented people that have sued him. He just recently he wrote 2 executive orders asking for an investigations into people who used to work in his administration and have written books. And he wants those people investigated for crimes because they wrote about working in his administration in the past. There's a lot of people out there right now who are afraid. There's a lot of people out there who are afraid of the repercussions, afraid of the consequences that will befall them because they speak critically to power. I mean, we'll bring up Bishop Buddy again, Bishop Marianne Buddy. That here she was. She wasn't critical. She just simply said, "I beg you, I ask you." There's a lot of people in our country who are afraid. Please be a president that is merciful. And look what happened. There are still people who are attacking her. Right? There are still people who are criticizing. There's people who are calling for her to be tried as a traitor and sentenced accordingly for preaching a sermon about mercy, preaching a sermon about helping your neighbor and alleviating the fears of your neighbor. In a time like this, I mean, well, again, it was Brian Tyler Cohen who at the end of his videos now has this little spiel where he says, I don't know how long I'm going to be on YouTube, because they may decide one day just to simply get rid of me because I'm saying things that are critical of the president, and YouTube will push me off, or they'll push me off the platform, or they'll stop monetizing, or whatever the case might be. The point I'm trying to get at here is this. This sucks. And we need you. Like, this sucks and we need you. This sucks and we need those journalism students. This sucks and we need journalists. Bill Burr, the comedian, he said some stuff not too long ago about Luigi Mangione and rich people. And he was asked by a couple of entertainment reporters when he was on the red carpet of something. He was going in, I don't know, it was a new movie or some, maybe it was a Broadway or something. Anyway, they asked him, do you have anything to say about what you said about that other stuff? And he said, yeah. And excuse the language, he said, journalists need to get some balls. He said, you got to stand up. Now, I'm not saying journalists aren't doing their job. I don't want to make it sound as though I'm attacking journalism or lawyers or law firms or broadcasters or anything like that. Let's reframe and say we need to keep going. Despite the threats, we need to keep going. Despite the possibility that there will be nasty repercussions, we need to keep going. Despite the fact that there may be awful consequences, we need to keep going. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep speaking out. We need to keep criticizing. I mean, there's a passage that I often get a great deal of comfort from, and it comes from the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, the very first chapter. In particular, it's verses 1 through 9, and I beg your indulgence to let me read it to you. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert of Lebanon to the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will ever be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land that I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the laws of my servant Moses gave you. Be careful to obey all the laws that my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that it may be careful to do, and so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, context here is, it's a problematic one. He's telling Joshua to go in and conquer the promised land. He's telling him to go in and go to war with the existing occupants of the promised land. And I know there's lots that can be said about that, but it's the message, the theme here of this passage that I want to stress. Be strong and courageous. Be bold and courageous. And lead the people to where we are promised to go. Follow God's ways. God's ways are what? Justice, mercy, right? Love, compassion. These are God's ways. These are God's things. Be those people. Be people of truth. To the journalist students out there, be people of truth and fact, despite the consequences. doing so you will be righteous. God is righteous, God will always be with you because you are doing what you're doing in a way that would be approved by God. Speaking the truth, speaking of fact, speaking to power and authority. For those of us maybe that aren't in journalism, for those of us who are out protesting, keep it up. There may be awful consequences. There's no promise. There's no promise anywhere that just because God is with us that there won't be pain and suffering in our life. Just because God is with us that there won't be results that we're not happy with. Just because there's nothing that promises that just because God is with us that everything will work out just hunky-dory. That's not how it is. It means that God is always with us because by doing the things that God would have us do in the ways that God would have us do them, we are always with God. So go out courageously and boldly. Go out and protest. Don't give in to the temptations of lowering ourselves to those standards of those we would be protesting against, of those we would be speaking to, of that authority we would be critical of. But keep moving forward. These are scary times, right? These are scary times that James O'Brien is the story that he mentions is it's evidence that these are scary, strange times. And scary, strange times need people of truth. And they need people who are bold and courageous, and they need people who are willing to face consequences. This is a time like this is a time when that requires all of us to be willing to face trouble for the sake of a better future. Again, there's no promise that there'll be no suffering. There's no promise that there'll be no persecution. There's no promise that there'll be no trouble. The Bible, again, is filled with people who have stood up, who were bold, who were courageous, who did the thing that God would have them do, and they faced fear and they faced anxiety and they were recipients of negative consequences. But what they gave the world was incalculable. What they did for the people was miraculous. Many of those who follow God, many of those who have been bold and courageous, they've suffered. But they suffered for the sake of the other, and that's what you and I are called to do. That's what our journalists are called to do. That's what lawyers are called to do. That's what people of elected officials are called to do. Are you willing to suffer? Not harm. Are you willing to suffer for the sake of change? Are you willing to suffer for the sake of your neighbor? Are you willing to face those consequences for the sake of a stranger? For the sake of truth? For the sake of a brighter future? Amen.